Bhagavato Tarsata Shishimad Shringa Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsa Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Navadup Dham Ki Jai. New Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Shrimate Subhadra Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Gornitai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jamunamai Gangamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hare Hari Bol. All glories to all the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the new chapter 5 from the first canto. We're on text number 1. And today's topic will discuss dissatisfaction. I think the mic needs to go up a little bit. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Jai. So we're in first canto, chapter 5, text 1. And title today will be dissatisfaction. So just to give you a little review, we know the first canto is, and the second canto is like the footsteps of Krishna. And in the first 3 chapters, there's the 6 questions and answers by the sages. And so in chapter 2 and 3, those are basically the answers. And then the 4th chapter, there's more questions. And the questions are about the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam and why there has to be another literature after he's written all the Vedic literatures. And then they're asking about the listener and the speaker, which is Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. They're the original speaker and listener, it's described. So this first canto is the foundation of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, an introduction. So we're going to see here Vyasadeva in the 4th chapter. He was contemplating very deeply the well-being of all living entities, and he could see in the future what's going to happen. And he can see that there's too much affinity for matter, and that causes degradation very quickly. So he wanted to try to summarize all the Vedas and have a gradual development for the conditioned souls. So in this 5th chapter, Narada appears, and he describes the root problem and the despondency of Srila Vyasadeva. And so this is very nice, how he chastised him, saying that, you've very much inordinately emphasized how to enjoy matter. So therefore, people think it's authorized, and less intelligent people think that's their religion, actually. So just you give a little step, a little thing, and then they take more advantage. Just like there's a time when devotees saying, Srila Prabhupada ate chocolate, so therefore it's authorized. Or Srila Prabhupada had 7-Up, therefore it's authorized. But in fact, there's some spiritual masters in ISKCON that actually one of the regulated principles is no soda pops, because it's very degrading, actually. Okay, so let's get right into the verse here. Sutta Uvacha Ata Tam Sukham Asina Ata Tam Sukham Asina Upasinam Brihach Travaha Upasinam Brihach Travaha Devarsi Praha Viparsim Devarsi Praha Viparshim Vina Pani Smayan Iva Vina Pani Smayan Iva Sutta Vacha Atatam Sukham Asina Upasinam Brihatstrava Devarshi Prahavi Prarshim Vina Pani Smayaniva Sutta Vacha Atatam Sukham Asina Upasinam Brihatstrava Devarshi Prahavi Prarshim Vina Pani Smayaniva Smayaniva Sutta Uvacha Pasinam Brihatstravaha Vashim Pinapani Samayaminam Sutta Vacha Tatam Sukham Asina Apasinam Brihatstravaha Devarshi Prahavi Prarsim Manyandeep Samaya Viva Sutta Vacha Tatam Sukham Asina Apasinam Brihatstravaha Devarshi Prahavi Prarshim Vinapani Smayaniva Sutta Vacha Atatam Sukham Asina Upasinam Brihatstravaha Devarshi Prahavi Prarshim Vinapani Smayaniva Tatam Sukham Asinam Apasinam Brihatstravaha Devarshi Prahavi Prarshim Vinapani Smayaniva Vaishnavis Sutta Vacha Tatam Sukham Asinam Panasimam Brihatstravaha Ashiva Purashim Pani Samadhiva Sutta Vacha said Ata therefore Tam, him. Sukham asinaha, comfortably seated. Upasinam, unto one sitting nearby. Brihatsravaha, greatly respected. Devarshi, the great rishi among the gods. Praha, said. Viparsim, unto the rishi among the brahmanas. Vinapani, one who carries a veena in his hand. Smayam iva, apparently smiling. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sutta Goswami said, thus the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the brahmanas, Vedavyas. Please repeat. Sutta Goswami said, the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi among the brahmanas, Vedavyas. Purport. Narada was smiling because he knew well the great sage Vedavyas and the cause of his disappointment. As he will explain gradually, Vedavyas's disappointment was due to insufficiency in presenting the science of devotional service. Narada knew the defect, and it was confirmed by the position of Vyas. Jai. Om Jnanatmadandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksus Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayamupakadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakopa Tubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitatam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Sutta Goswami said, thus the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the brahmanas, Vedavyas. So here, who we're talking about is Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, who are actually incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you see, Vyas is actually the seventh incarnation. You can see him on the right there with the beard, and Narada is standing in front of him with his veena. So Vyas is the 17th incarnation of Godhead. We discussed that in chapter 3, wasn't it? I think the scheduled incarnations of Krishna talks about that. So he appeared in the womb of Satyavati through Parshar Muni, and he divided the Vedas into several branches, sub-branches, and seeing that the people were less intelligent, so he did that so they can understand it properly through the different Puranas, the Mahabharata. So in that way he did that. So Vyasadeva is a very powerful Supreme Person. And then there's Narada, and he appeared as the third empowered incarnation of Krishna. So here we have two great empowered personalities, and they're coming to teach us by their example and to give us some transcendental knowledge and show us the process to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is very important to understand how these are not ordinary personalities. They're actually empowered representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, considered to be actually his incarnation. So since we're talking about Narada, maybe we can have some help here in trying to identify some of these pictures. And we can see how different pastimes we see the great sages come. Anybody recognize this particular picture? Yes? Yeah, what was his name then? Anybody remember? He was a Gandharva that was very nicely chanting the glories of the demigods amongst where they were trying to glorify Krishna, right? And he got cursed because of that. So it's interesting how Narada, he's going to come and teach the glories of the Supreme Personality Godhead, but originally, eventually, or beginning, he was cursed for doing just the opposite. So he learned his lesson there. So who remembers his name? Chitrath? Yeah? You have to help me out here. I'm asking for your help. So, yeah. All right, so that's somebody says Chitrath. So he was cursed there. So let's go in to discuss some more activities of Narada Muni since he appeared in this chapter. So anybody recognize this painting? Yes, so he actually enlightened or gave Dhruva Maharaj the mantra so he could become enlightened. And he actually was able to perceive the personality of Godhead very amazingly. Yeah? Okay. And then, so this is Mrigari the hunter, yes, and Narada appeared to him. So you can see Narada Muni is traveling everywhere, and he goes everywhere to help conditioned souls. And here he's just to the point where the same person wouldn't even step on ants, where he was originally half killing animals. And he was showing, who's the other sage with him? Parvata Muni. So he was showing him, Parvata Muni was glorifying Narada Muni because of his like a touchstone. Whoever it comes in contact with, they become so pure. And then here is another image. Anybody recognize this? Or have any ideas? Is it the Haryasvas? Okay. And there was like 10,000 each, right? So you see he has many disciples all over the universe. And anybody recognize this? Yes. The demigods were thinking this is Prahlada Maharaj's son or child. Hiranyakashipu's son. I was thinking of Prahlad here so much. But yeah, so they thought, well, geez, if he's such a big demon, just think what his son's going to be like. So they're ready. Instead of doing an abortion, they're waiting for it to be born so they could kill it. So Narada Muni came and said, no, he's actually a pure devotee of Krishna. You can't even kill him if you tried. So, and this is what his father tried to do. He couldn't even kill him. And what is this about? So Narada Muni, he comes and even instructs the demons, or somehow or another gets them riled up to bring Krishna here even quicker. So Narada Muni is actually considered an eternal associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Where else does he appear? In the Panchatattva. Who is he? Shivas. So we have a great personality here. And what is this episode? Yeah, they were cursed because they were inappropriately dressed and intoxicated and proud. And Narada Muni actually cursed them, but it was a blessing in disguise. So they saw Krishna, and there's great personality. So once upon a time, we get into Vyasadeva now. He was doing his morning ablutions as the sun was rising on the waters of the Sarasvati, and he sat alone to concentrate. What was he concentrating about? He was able to go into trance, and he meditated, and he saw all the anomalies of happening on earth. He saw the different ages, and he saw this particular age, and you could see the force of time. It's unseen. And he's a liberated soul, so he can clearly see the past and the future. And he saw the future anomalies of Kali Yuga, and that they would be so dark, and that people will not be interested in anything spiritual, just matter, just things that are temporary. So this is their ignorance. They're unable to evaluate the assets of life and be enlightened in spiritual knowledge. So he had great compassion for them. He was very concerned for the conditioned souls. So he was seeing these things. He was fully equipped with knowledge, and he could see with his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything. And it was just simply due to the influence of the age. And he could see how the people were faithless in general. They're reduced in life, and they would be impatient because lack of goodness. So he contemplated the welfare and statuses of these people. So you can see in this image there's many degraded people. The four, the impious people, and even some of the four pious people that were interested in spiritual knowledge. But yet, they were also misguided. They may look up for some relief, but yet they can also be misguided. So Srila Vyasadeva was concerned for both groups, all 8 groups, the four pious and the impious people. He was concerned about them. So in this chapter we see that Narada Muni decided to compile all the Vedic literatures, but yet, despite all that great endeavor, he was dissatisfied. And he was thinking, maybe it's because he knew pretty much I wasn't glorifying the Supreme Lord sufficiently. And just at that time, Krishna sent Narada Muni to confirm it. And he appeared to Srila Vyasadeva, and he began to describe the root problem of his despondency. Because you've given inordinate emphasis for people to enjoy matter, and they'll think that's authorized. You see? So he said that, people have this affinity for matter, and you shouldn't just try to give them some taste and try to gradual. He was thinking more and more, like there's the Bhagavad Gita in the whole Mahabharata, and Krishna is practically just like another personality. He doesn't glorify Krishna sufficiently. So he's saying, you haven't done this, so therefore you should sit in trance again, and actually you should meditate. And in this chapter he describes how actually that's what I did. He talks about his life when he was a young boy, and he took shelter of the Bhaktivedantas. And from that he became very attached to hearing the sages' narrations of Krishna. And he ate the remnants of food, and he became purified. And then he became attached to Krishna. And this, just see, from sound, we can associate. So he's explaining to Srila Vyasadeva, please describe the activities of the Supreme Lord. And this will satisfy all the hankerings of all great learned men. And at the same time, it'll mitigate all the miseries of the masses of people who are always suffering these material pangs. He said, indeed, there's no other way to get out of such miseries. So he's telling him that he reminds him that you are actually this, an incarnation. You're a supreme personality. So please just always describe these things. So how is it that Vyasadeva needs a spiritual master even though he's an incarnation of Krishna? So this is Krishna explaining to us the importance of a spiritual master. How important it is, even though he didn't need a spiritual master, but yet as an example, he accepted Narada Muni as a spiritual master, who guided him in the proper direction in devotional service, bhakti yoga. So he's advising him that you should describe the glories of the Lord, just for all these 8 classes of people that I mentioned. And he describes to him that this human form of life is a chance to get out of this imprisoned life. And as such, the only occupation of the human being is to reestablish his lost relationship with God. And he says, under the circumstances, one should never encourage one to make a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religion. You see? I mean, it's okay, we see that it's important that devotees have to take care of their bodies, they have to eat properly, they have to perform exercises and do these things. But these things are not our religion. Some people make a religion out of these things. Like you have people on these special diets. We have these vegans and all these other types of fads. But actually, it shouldn't be your religion. That's what you only do. That's just something that we do so that we can practice our religion. You become strong. So this compromising spirit was actually condemned by Narada Muni. And he directly told him that you should actually proclaim the prime necessity of human life, that one should realize one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord and thereby surrender unto Him. So here we see that transcendental knowledge actually comes from Krishna, and Srila Vyasadeva, he can meditate, and by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can actually present or imbibe the transcendental literatures of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he has that power to actually inject Krishna into these transcendental literatures. So thereby he's giving all the conditioned souls, he's giving them the opportunity to actually associate with Krishna. And by associating with Krishna, hearing these transcendental literatures, then all their corrupt minds will become purified. And this hankering for food of transcendental literatures, like there's always a hankering to read and literatures, but because people's minds are so corrupt, they go for these obscene literatures and mundane literatures, which are condemned. It's described in this chapter that it's like the difference between the crow and the swan. So where does the crow get its pleasure from? Garbage and dead things in the street. And the swans, it's like literally black and white, right? Black feathers and white feathers. So the swans, they get transcendental pleasure where? Yeah, the lotuses, clear water, enjoying all the transcendental beauty of real what life is about. So this is described how Narada Muni, so he's coming and enlightening Srila Vyasadeva, and you can see here Krishna is actually appearing because of his contemplation in the Vedic literature right there for all the conditioned souls. So then Srila Vyasadeva is bringing, from those transcendental literatures, he's bringing Krishna to us so that we can actually take advantage of these transcendental literatures and become purified. So there's some nice things about the Srimad Bhagavatam in this particular chapter, and I'll just highlight a few things that were described here. So it says here, Srimad Bhagavatam therefore is meant for all the living beings all over the universe for total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives who are completely merged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Only such devotees to the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject matter for many, many years. Then here it says, Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science and therefore can react on the layman as medicinal doses, because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord, and there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby they are able to associate with the Lord. How many times do we say Lord? And thus gradually become purified from material diseases. The expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstances. Devotional service is dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of materialistic population. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. So we can see that. He mentions Lord Chaitanya here, and we see the disciples of Lord Chaitanya. What did they do? They actually wrote many transcendental literatures. All the Goswamis had so many different transcendental literatures. And not only that, but they all built different temples also. So this is nice. And we see Srila Prabhupada has also written how many, over 80 volumes of different books for us to take advantage of. And he has also built temples all over the world, just to give the opportunity for the conditioned souls to hear about Krishna. And this hearing is so transcendental. You know, there's a mystic city that you could develop where you could hear anything from anywhere. Like, people develop that so they can hear great sages speaking in different planets. They could hear their narrations. But Prabhupada has given us this mystic power. Simply pick up a book and you're listening to the transcendental sages from all over the universe. Actually, you're hearing Narada Muni. We're hearing these things. And even now, these mystic cities, people in their own homes can listen to transcendental topics all over the world. You could tune into Indian temples in India, different temples around the United States, different temples in Europe. Just log in. You know, with material science, like that German who went to India, he said there's no need for mystic powers because material science has already developed mystic powers. There's no need. The only endeavor should be is to tune into these transcendental messages of the Supreme Personality Godhead. And then we'll actually take advantage and make spiritual advancement like this, which is the whole purpose of the human form of life. Not wasting it for mundane literatures, mundane activities, but actually becoming satisfied. It's interesting how we know this Atmarama verse that Lord Chaitanya quoted, and he described it in 64 different ways. Just like yesterday, Druta Karma was giving class and he was describing different lines, very nicely elaborating. So just think, every verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam you can pick apart, and every verse, Lord Chaitanya said, every word of the Atmarama verse is to describe Krishna, is to bring one's attention to Krishna. So just think, all the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam are all meant to help us to realize Krishna. So wherever we are, it's like nectar. This is the greatest transcendental literature, the greatest topics one can hear. So please, we have to take advantage. I'm speaking to myself. We have to all take advantage and really absorb our minds. Not only hear, you could become blessed, but if you actually hear and study, then you will also become more and more advanced. And then we all become Atmaramas, completely satisfied. Right now, one meaning of the word Atmarama refers to everybody, even materialistic people that are trying to enjoy their senses. They're a type. That's one definition of Atmarama. But we don't want that type of Atmarama. We want the Atmarama where we're completely surrendered to Krishna. We have no interest in mystic powers. We have no interest in sense gratification. No interest in mental speculation. Our only interest is to serve Krishna without motivation. Anyabhilasita sunyam. Without any desires for anything. So that's our whole purpose and whole way we become satisfied. Atmarama. So I'll end there, and if there's any comments or questions, realization. Let's see, I think Nakama had his hand first.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. You mentioned that mystic city of super hearing. What is that called?
I'm not sure.
And where did you read that?
That's in the 11th canto, where Krishna explains to Uddhava all the mystic processes. And it's interesting, in the mystic processes, you can't develop any mystic city, even that one, unless you meditate on Krishna. That's the thing, so see. And even if you do develop some mystic powers without meditating on Krishna, it's considered to be inferior to the type of mystic city you could develop when you actually meditate on Krishna, the super soul. And every one of them you have to actually meditate on Krishna. It's interesting. Yes?
We shouldn't just hear, but we should also study.
Yes.
So what do you mean by study?
Study means you get absorbed. You read these transcendental literatures, like you could read this chapter, and you could really dive into it, and not just read, but how can I apply that to my life? You see, how does it relate to me? And how can I distribute this message? So in other words, how can I become transformed? So Prabhupada wanted everyone to become pure devotees. This movement is to create pure devotees. So we should read in such a way that we will become pure devotees. So unless you're pure, like Narada Muni, you can't actually, create more pure devotees. If we don't follow the process of studying, hearing, and chanting, how can your preaching have any effect? So the purity is the force. Okay? I think there was another hand somewhere. Oh, over here. Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you for a nice class, as usual. I just want to supplement your answer with respect to mystic powers. As a devotee progresses to purity and purification, mystic powers, they automatically develop, but
Yes.
the devotee has absolutely no interest, no concern, no thought about them, because they are actually detriments in the sense that they cause the devotee not to think of himself as a devotee anymore, as a surrendered soul, but as a leader, as a king, as a superior, as greater than other people. He can fly in the sky, or he can stay underwater, and there are many instances like that. So the development of these powers, as I said, for a genuine and true and sincere devotee is of no consequence, and he's not interested. And in a sense, he looks down at them because they are deterrents or detriments to his upward movement in spiritual life. They take him away from it and bring him back to a consciousness that he's trying to ascend from. So that was the first point I wanted to make. The second point is that mystic powers can be cultivated by demons, and they are quite frequently. We have the whole brood of Ravan.
Yeah.
Ravan had all mystic powers, and he was acted like a Rakshasa, and he was actually head of many of the Rakshasas who knew these different powers. They knew how to fly in the sky. In fact, in the Ramayana, one of the first challenges that Lord Ramachandra gets is that he has to kill a few of those demons who were in the sky and interfering with the sacrifices of Vishvamitra. And they were throwing down all sorts of offensive items that should not be in a sacrifice. So Lord Ramachandra and his brother and his brother Lakshman, they were asked, they were only about 15 years old at the time, and they came and they killed those demons who were in the sky flying there. So the point, these demons would go and they would look for holy men, and they would actually kill them and eat them. So having mystic powers may assure one of knowing how to do things which are above and beyond what the normal, ordinary human being can do. But that doesn't assure any inner peace, any inner happiness, or any inner satisfaction, or any inner joy whatsoever. All it assures you is that you have some superiority over someone else. But Krishna levels the playing field at some point in time and then flattens you, as he flattened Ravan, who thought no one could ever defeat him. And it's interesting, those of us who have read the Ramayana, and you come to the climactic scene where Ravan thinks he can never be killed, and Ram knew the secret of his invincibility, which was in his heart, and there was a little, if you will, a vial of nectar there, which allowed him to always remain alive. But once that would be splattered, and with an arrow, a single arrow, Lord Ramachandra did that. He splattered the nectar, pierced the heart, and at the end, Ravan had to cut a sorry figure, showing that mystic powers loses in the sight of or in the face of pure love of God. Hare Krishna.
I'd like to show you something I found in the 11th canto. It's very interesting here. This is probably from the purports, but it's a nice realization here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given his command that people all over the world should take to Krishna consciousness. The sincere devotees of the Lord should go all over the world repeating the Lord's command. In this way, they can share in his mystic opulence of giving orders that cannot be counteracted. So that's nice. We're actually assisting the Lord in his mystic powers by going out. So, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, everybody. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Prabhupada.